Skillshare is for designers, photographers, marketers, artists, and lifelong learners. Skillshare is for foodies, commuters, risk takers, the young, and the young at heart. It's for strategists, free spirits, purists, the bold, the curious, the characters, the makers, and the breakers. Skillshare is for everyone, an online learning community with thousands of classes to advance your career, improve the world, and pursue the work you love. What will you learn next? It all starts on Skillshare.
So adverbs tell us how something is done, or where, or when, or in what manner, okay? They modify the verb. They change the verb. They add to the verb. Adverb adds to the verb. So that's a mnemonic device. And if you find yourself remembering the difference between the adjective and the adverb, perhaps it will help you to remember that the adverb adds to the verb. So some examples that we have over here is the cheetah ran quickly. How did it run? It ran quickly. So remember, you can go back to the verb and it links with that. I worked on the paper yesterday. When did I work on the paper? You see, work on the paper yesterday. You left your keys there. Where did you leave them? You left them there. So, these are all adverbs, and he answered her kindly. In what manner did he answer her? Kindly, in a kindly manner. And so there I'm using kindly. When I say kindly manner, I'm using it as an adjective, but he answered her kindly. That modifies the verb. So remember, adverbs add to the verb. They modify the verb in the same way that an adjective modifies or changes a noun, makes it more specific. So an adjective does the same for a verb. So he didn't just answer her, he answered her kindly. And so note how we can change that by changing the adverb. We can change the manner in which he answered. He answered sharply. He answered loudly. He answered cruelly. Or he answered kindly. He answered gently. You see, so each one of those adverbs changes our perception of the manner in which he answered, whoever he is. And that's the job of an adverb. One thing to note is that adverbs usually add an ly. Not always, and I'll talk about the exceptions in just a slide or two, but they usually do. So we see from the examples here, he answered her kindly. She worked diligently. The bee flew quickly from flower to flower. He spoke angrily. You see that? So you see a pattern developing, right? For the most part, adjectives add the ly ending to the adjective. He was angry, the angry man. You see, that's the adjective form. He spoke angrily. Okay. She was brilliant. The brilliant girl. Okay. She played brilliantly. Okay. You see, so when we modify the verb, for the most part, we add the ly. There is a class of adverbs that don't take the ly ending, or don't always take the ly ending. Some of the adverbs kind of straddle the border between what we call the flat adverbs and what you might think of as the regular adverbs. But these might include words or phrases such as drive safe. You could also say drive safely. So you see, so that's a word that could go either way. But run fast is definitely a flat adverb. You could not say run fastly. That just wouldn't be allowed. Go slow or go slowly. Okay, but slow could be a flat adverb. Sleep tight. You would never say sleep tightly. Okay, so tight in this sense to modify sleep would be a flat adverb. Hit hard. If the coach is exhorting his team, hit hard. That would be a flat adverb. You couldn't say hit hardly. In the same way, work hard. Work hard. The hard would be modifying work, right? So then it's an adverb because it's modifying the verb. But you could not say hardly. You'd have to say work hard. Fly high. You would not say fly highly. You see, so the high in this sense is always a flat adverb. And lastly, we have the slogan, the advertising slogan, think different, which is not a usual usage. Usually, one would say think differently, but the advertisers wanted to think different, and so they used a flat adverb form of the adverb or the adjective different, and used the flat adverb form of the word. Okay. This form, lastly, just a little historical note, used to be more common than it is now. The Bible gives us such a phrase as exceeding glad. Nowadays we say exceedingly glad, exceedingly glad. But when the writers of the King James Bible in the 1600s wrote the passage, they wrote exceeding glad. Shakespeare, about the same time actually, wrote in Richard II, marvelous great. We would now write marvelously great, but Shakespeare didn't feel a need to add the ly. Okay, and a little bit later, Robinson Crusoe, writing, or as Daniel Defoe wrote in his novel Robinson Crusoe, the sea went dreadful high. And again, dreadful is being used as a flat adverb there. We would again write today dreadfully high. Anyway, so here's this class of adverbs that are flat, sometimes always flat, and sometimes according to the situation or according to the particular usage. So over here to the side here, I have a list of ways that adverbs indicate or that they modify. They give direction, edgewise, sideways, extent, completely, wholly, frequency, always, annually, seldom, sometimes the instrument, microscopically, sometimes location, regionally, worldwide, time, early, sometimes, today, yesterday, the modality, maybe, necessarily, perhaps, possibly, probably. So these are all adjectives. And the thing to remember here is they are not always apparently connected to the verb. Okay, so it's not the same type of adjective as to drive quickly or to drive fast. But they are modifying the verb. So yesterday he went to school. You see, so yesterday modifies went, doesn't modify he. Okay, it modifies went. When did he go to school? When did he go to school? Okay, well, we're not saying who went to school. We know who went to school. When did he go to school? He went to school yesterday. So that type of word modifies the verb. Adverbs also modify the modifiers. Okay, so if you have a word modifying a modifier, either an adverb or an adjective, what you call that word that's doing the modifying of the modifier is an adverb. Okay, so playing with tigers is extremely dangerous. Okay, so note that dangerous is an adjective. It's being modified by extremely. Extremely is an adverb. Okay, it's not just dangerous, it's extremely dangerous. Okay, that soup is not just hot, it is very hot. The very is an adverb. It's modifying hot. Are you completely sure? Completely modifies sure. Sure being an adjective, completely would be an adverb. That movie was exceedingly boring. Okay, again, exceedingly is modifying boring. She is quite stunning. Okay, quite modifies stunning. My professor is rather boring. This lecture is rather boring. Okay, the rather would be an adverb. He runs very fast. Okay, you see, so he runs very fast. He runs fast. The fast is an adverb. The very is modifying the adverb. So the adverb can also modify another adverb. I've given you several examples where it's modifying the adjective, but it can also modify an adverb. She studies diligently, you see, so, or she studies very diligently. I want to emphasize, it's not just diligently, it's very diligently. Okay, so the word that is modifying a adjective or an adverb is also an adverb. Note that adverbial phrases and clauses also exist, and so you have phrases and clauses that function as adverbs, even though we have identified them earlier as other forms. And so in the first example, my mother was born in a tiny cabin in the mountains of New Mexico. Okay, so here we have a series of prepositional phrases that are modifying the verb. Okay, born. Where was she born? In a tiny cabin. Where? In the mountains. Where? Of New Mexico. Okay, so these prepositional phrases are also known as adverbial phrases because they're modifying the verb. So I picked my way carefully over the rocks to avoid falling. So again, we have the infinitive phrase to avoid falling, and it's modifying how I picked my way or why I picked my way in that manner. Okay, so that's an adverbial phrase. Now, the wrestlers worked out until they could hardly stand. So here we have a clause. Remember, a clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a predicate. And this is also known as a subordinate clause because it started with one of the wabbits, one of the subordinate conjunctions, until they could hardly stand. But that is modifying working out, the worked out idea in the sentence. Okay, so adverbial phrases and clauses also modify the verb. There is a group of adverbs that cause us a little bit of difficulty because sometimes we confuse exactly how to use them. First, I'll show you how they should be used. Okay, so we see some sample sentences over here. Every summer, we usually go to the beach. However, this year we're staying home. So notice that however is in a separate sentence by itself. The judge found the Wall Street bankers guilty of defrauding investors. Therefore, that's the conjunctive adverb, the judge sentenced them to the maximum penalty prescribed by law. Okay, so therefore is a conjunctive adverb. And so it's an adverb, and it modifies the verb, but it also joins in a sense. It creates a logical connection between that which preceded and that which follows. Okay, so Rodriguez closed down his legal practice 20 years ago. He has, nevertheless, continued to work pro bono on cases for the poor. Pro bono means for free. Okay, so anyway, that nevertheless is the conjunctive adverb. You see how it creates a logical relationship between closing down the legal practice and continuing to work. Okay, first get an education. Then, you see, that's the conjunctive adverb. Then you'll have the opportunity to do what you wish to with your life. Okay, then. Okay, so these are the conjunctive adverbs, and there's a few more, and you can read more about them in the text. But this gives you an idea about what they are and how they work. These conjunctive adverbs are sometimes called the false conjunctions. Because it's very easy for us to confuse them with the regular conjunctions, with the true conjunctions. They show a logical relationship, sometimes a cause and effect relationship, such a word as therefore. Sometimes they show opposition, such as however does. But it is to remember that they're not conjunctions, and you can't use them as conjunctions because if you do, you end up committing probably a sentence error, such as the comma splice or the run-on sentence, which, as we stated a few lessons ago, is a egregious error, a very bad thing to do. Okay, so anyway, so these are the false conjunctions, and we'll take a look at how it is that they are so and how it is that we should use them. So the false conjunctions have a meaning that's similar to the true conjunctions. And take a look at however, the word however, which is one of the false conjunctions, one of the conjunctive adverbs. So you see that in the example that I have over here, the correct example would be Tommy got a home run, period, full stop. However, we still lost the game. Well, I could also write the same idea, practically the same idea. Tommy got a home run, comma, but we lost the game. So notice that the but places the second clause in the same sentence that we start with a second sentence in the first example when we use however. Okay, so they have a similar meaning. And I think that's one of the areas that we get confused as to their function. Now, a very common error that I see in student writing, especially, is using such a word as however as if it were a true conjunction. So remember, it's a false conjunction. It's not a true conjunction. And we have an example here. Tommy got a home run, comma, however, he still lost the game. So notice the comma places the second clause, however, we still lost the game, in the same sentence as the first clause. But we're using the however as if it were a conjunction. It's not. This is incorrect. This is wrong. Okay. And in the next slide, I'll explain why and how it is wrong. The conjunctive adverb does not work the same way as the conjunction does. The false conjunction does not work the same way that the true conjunction does. And I'll just demonstrate this with a simple example. So we could write, Tommy got a home run, but we lost the game. Okay, so notice that's one sentence with the two clauses joined by the coordinating conjunction but. But notice that we could write using the word however, Tommy got a home run, period. However, we lost the game. We could write Tommy got a home run, we, however, lost the game. Or Tommy got a home run, period, again. We lost the game, however. Okay, we lost the game, however. Okay, so notice how however as an adverb can move around the sentence. You can't do that with but, and I'll show that in the next slide. So remembering from this slide before how we can move however up and down the sentence. The true conjunction cannot do that. It has to begin, the true conjunction has to begin the clause. So we could write Tommy got a home run, but we lost the game. So that sounds all right. But it would be incorrect for us to write Tommy got a home run, we still but lost the game. Or Tommy got a home run, we still lost the game, but. See, that does not work at all. Whereas we could write, we still, however, lost the game. We, however, lost the game. You see, so the however can move around. It's an adverb, even though it provides a relationship between what went before and what will follow. It is not a conjunction proper. Okay, so the true conjunction and the false conjunction don't work the same way. And so that's why you cannot use the false conjunction, the conjunctive adverbs, as if they were true conjunctions. And in the text, you'll see a list of these conjunctive adverbs. The words such as however, nevertheless, moreover, therefore, thus, words like that, that cannot be used as conjunctions, even though they perform a logical function very similar to conjunctions, but you have to be careful. Just one more word about the conjunctive adverb. And this is about how we can properly use them. Okay, so we know now that we cannot use the conjunctive adverb, the false conjunction, as if it were a conjunction. So we cannot say, as we see in the first sentence example over here, we traveled to England, then we hopped over the channel to France. As a matter of fact, there might even be some confusion if you wrote that, because how do you know or how does the reader know that it's not we traveled to England then? We hopped over the channel to France. I mean, so you're not quite sure which way to read it. But beyond that, it does not work. The word then does not work as a conjunction. So there are some possible alternative ways to write this pair of sentences or these two ideas that are correct. And so we see the first one, we traveled to England and then we hopped over the channel to France. And so you use the conjunctive adverb with a conjunction proper, and then. See, so you can't use then by itself as a conjunction, but you can use it in combination with a conjunction. Or you could just make a full stop. You could create two sentences. We traveled to England, period. Then we hopped over the channel to France. Okay, so you just begin a whole new sentence, or something very similar to that. In the last example, we traveled to England, semicolon, and I'll get to the rules on the semicolon when we get to punctuation, but we traveled to England, semicolon, then we hopped over the channel to France. And so the semicolon provides a full stop, and then you begin what is essentially a sentence by itself afresh. Okay, so then we hopped over the channel to France. So you see some different ways that we can use the conjunctive adverb properly, and the one way that we cannot. So those are the adjectives and adverbs. And while they are not the root or in the trunk of the sentence, such as the nouns and the verbs, they do in very important ways shape, modify, color, limit, and expand our understanding of what is being said in the sentence. So, as before, I'll remind you and urge you to take a look at the text, to do the check your knowledge exercise, and of course to post any questions that you might have regarding the adjectives and adverbs in the chat area, in the question area. And with that, I will bid you a fond adieu until we meet again.